Hi there, my name is John Quees Bouye. This is my Cap 2 Theta Lactate for Calbab University course Advanced Exercise Physiology, Kin 516 for Dr. Harvison. So, the Theta Lactate, the first thing we must know is what anaerobic metabolism and anaerobic glycolysis is. This is when your body produces energy when there's little to no or lack of oxygen, thus producing ATP for the body to, do any type of activities, whether walking or anything like that. And this process goes from the muscle to the blood to the liver to the Krebs cycle. So the Krebs cycle, as I stated, is in the anaerobic glycolysis or metabolism process. And to break it down simply, it goes from the skeletal muscle, the breakdown of glucose, into pyruvate, into lactate, and then goes through the bloodstream to the liver to then convert that lactate to pyruvate back to glucose through gluconeogenesis and back to the blood and to produce glucose again in a cycle and over again. So to further break it down, how does it work? It works. The Krebs cycle and anaerobic glycolysis works when there is no oxygen or low oxygen in the muscles as they break down glucose to obtain ATP. So the muscle first must convert pyruvate into lactate. This is done by the enzyme of lactate dehydrogenase. And this process is also known as lactic acid fermentation. This process is needed for to produce NAD+, so therefore the body can go through glycolysis over and over again. So once lactate is transferred from the skeletal muscle through the blood to the liver, it then goes through another process, as I stated right here. After lactate, it goes through the process of lactate dehydrogenase to then go back to pyruvate, which then goes through gluconeogenesis to form glucose again and re-enter the bloodstream, going through further glycolysis. So, what lactic acid fermentation is? Lactic acid fermentation is when, as I stated, pyruvate is transferred to lactate. This is done by NADH releasing or adding hydrogen atoms to therefore produce NAD+. So, how this intertwines with exercise and intensity and training adaptations. Mainly when you are at high intensities, it increases the production of lactate because your body cannot produce enough oxygen to go through the aerobic phase. So therefore, it goes through the anaerobic state in which the body produces lactate as a source of energy to kind of sustain your workouts and sustain that high intensity workout. But what this does in the body, it causes lack of oxygen because you're not getting enough oxygen within the body to create, an aerobic state. Decreases blood supply in the liver, and also it causes a burning sensation, which is due to the hydrogen proton atoms when there's too many proton atoms that aren't that go into your bloodstream, and this is also known as lactate accumulation, which I'll go into a little bit later as well. And in this phase, your body can only sustain about 30 seconds to 3 minutes of exercise before it needs a break, according to Roberts et al. 2006. As for low intensities, it's the complete opposite. It causes lower lactate levels because you do have fat as a source and you're able to oxidize fat and glucose molecules, and it kind of helps put your body in aerobic state. Some adaptations that come from this are, when you're training near your lactate threshold, which I will, go further into later, it kind of that training into your lactate threshold and a recovery process, it helps improve lactate threshold ability, and it also improves lactate storage capacity. So when you're training at these high lactate storage capacities, it allows your body to adapt to it and be able to sustain more lactate within your body to produce forces and to keep to sustain these high intensity workouts for a longer period of time. So In addition to that is OBLA. OBLA is onset of blood lactate accumulation. This occurs when you're pushing past your lactate threshold. As I stated, we'll go into that a little bit later. And this is when it signals that your blood lactate has increased, specifically to 4 millimoles, according to Mark et al. In the text. And this also occurs when you're at very low oxygen levels consumption, and it kind of prevents oxygen from being consumed because you're past your lactate threshold point. So therefore, you're far beyond what your normal lactate threshold is. Usually, your lactate threshold is kind of like a warning saying you're at your peak, but when it comes to OBLA, that means you're past your peak, and this causes a pH. This causes your pH in your body to rise and causes pain in muscles. And for some cases, it can cause failure to energy systems, so your body cannot produce any more lactate. It can't produce any more energy because there is so much blood lactate accumulation in your body, and then your body goes into failure. And if your body goes into failure, you therefore collapse. Sorry, I lost track of thought. So the 4 factors of OBLA are, as I stated, plasma changes in the pH, hydrogen proton concentrations increase, bicarbonate, and carbon dioxide production. So lactate versus lactic acid. These things are used very interchangeably in a numerous amount of texts. What lactate is? Lactate is an end product produced by the body during anaerobic exercise. It's used as a fuel source for muscles. It helps delay fatigue as well as prevent injury. It's used as a buffer to control the pH balance in your body, so therefore it doesn't get too acidic. And when oxygen is low, it's used as a demand in an anaerobic state, and it turns from fuel source to pyruvate to lactate, as I stated earlier in the Kore cycle, and back to glucose, so your skeletal muscle can transfer it to the liver through the bloodstream and back and forth, and is used interchangeably. What your lactate threshold is when your lactate can't continue to reach. When lactate can't continue to reach a certain point is when you reach your lactate threshold. So what lactic acid is something that is not produced in the body. It's actually produced as a breakdown from your glucose molecules. And what it is just an added hydrogen proton attached to lactate. So lactate is pretty much the base of lactic acid, and is as it says, is high levels of lactate is lactic acid, but when it has too many hydrogens within the end product or within the bloodstream. Some negative effects. It does cause a negative effect when you're at a certain intensity. It causes your metabolic pathways to kind of negate, and it's used as a defensive mechanism to prevent damage during highly intense exertion. Reasons why lactic acid is not really good is because it causes things such as lactic acidosis, which I will get into a little bit later. So, as I stated, some metabolic uses is that lactate and lactic acid try to prevent lactic acidosis in the muscles, and lactic acidosis is when there is too many hydrogen protons within the bloodstream, causing your body to reach a certain acidity, which can cause liver problems and kidney problems, just based on the transfer from the end product of lactate having too many hydrogens, and not all those hydrogens aren't being able to pass through the bloodstream, or there's too many in the bloodstream where NAD plus, where it can't transfer into NAD plus. What lactate accumulation is that burning sensation when lactate is able to kind of accumulate, which is due to the positive hydrogen ions before it reaches OBLA or lactic acidosis. And that is my presentation. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.